Hi, this is Gary Pope from Late to the Table, and this segment is called What Should I Get?, where we go on Reddit and we basically look at the mega thread What Should I Get? And we suggest games for people. So let's go ahead and start. Siphon911 is basically looking for a 1 to 2 hour solo or co-op game. Budget's not really much of a factor, and he kind of prefers a fantasy or sci-fi theme, with a ton of miniatures in them. So for this I would suggest getting Mansions of Madness, Descent 2nd Edition with the app, and Mechs vs. Minions would also be another good one as well. Not Seinfeld basically wants a game that has the Yahtzee dice mechanic but is obviously not Yahtzee. This is a really easy one. I would suggest King of Tokyo if you don't already have that, and also if you have more players to play with, I would definitely suggest Bang the Dice game. I made a mistake as wondering about which game they should get for their girlfriend who really likes Concept. For this one I would suggest Codenames, Mysterium, and also Dixit as well. They're great games. The only catch with those games I just suggested though is that only Mysterium is okay with 2 players. The Guy 11 basically needs a game for him, his wife, and another couple coming over to play games. It needs to be roughly 30 to 60 minutes, and also they're the ones that suggested playing the games too, so they might be slight gamers, you never know. For this situation I would definitely get the competitive nature out by suggesting Codenames, which that does in flying colors, and it's hilarious as well. Also I would suggest Hanabi for a co-op game between you guys, and also I would suggest Monikers if you want to get really silly. Stenless wants a 3 to 5 player game that is roughly around the same complexity and competitiveness as Ticket to Ride. For this one I would definitely suggest getting Splendor, Imhotep, and if you absolutely require 5 players, in Evolution the Beginning. Just note that Evolution the Beginning you can only buy in Targets. And that was another episode of What Should I Get? This is Gary Pope from Late to the Table, and hopefully if you like this video you'll check me out on my YouTube channel as well, where we go through tips, tricks, and other suggestions as well. And hope you guys are enjoying your breakfast. So are they gone? Okay. So, yeah, we are going to keep giving more suggestions. So this is, I guess, a behind-the-scene director's cut, extended, whatever, video, whatever you could think of. But that's basically what this is. So, on to more What Should I Get? Mr. Fremantle wants to get a 3 to 5 player game that plays in under 5 hours, that's cooperative, that works pretty well with his League of Legends friends. I would say that Mechs vs. Minions is a great game to get, but just be warned that 1, it doesn't go up to 5 players, and 2, it's not League of Legends at all. It literally just has the characters and that's it. Even some of the lore, if I recall correctly, doesn't even make that much sense. Besides Mechs vs. Minions though, I would also suggest getting the escape room games, Hanabi, and Ghost Stories as well. Ghost Stories probably having the most replayability out of all of them because it's the hardest. Weaver Ashitsurus wants a heavy, competitive, asymmetrical power game that plays in roughly under 2 hours. Now the hard thing here is to suggest really a game because they already own a lot of the games that would actually fit this category perfectly. But I'll take a shot at this. Some games I noticed that they did mention that they has that. I'll give Star Wars Rebellion a shot, Comet, and Twilight Struggle a shot as well. Just be warned that some of those games will last over 2 hours, definitely for your first try, depending on player count as well. But I will also take a stab at maybe suggesting some things that are outside the box. I would give Vast a shot, and I would try out Spectre Ops, and if you want possibly even longer game than Spectre Ops, then I'll try Fury of Dracula as well. All of those are very great asymmetrical power games in which the gameplay is vastly different depending on what side and what character you are using. Santorowski wants an area control game that can be played over lunch. They've already played and owned 8-Minute Empire and Innish a lot, so they're looking for something different. I'm going to suggest 3 games for the situation. They're probably going to increase in length in terms of time, but the games get better as you go down, in my opinion. First game is going to be Melee, where you basically have a bidding, fighting mechanism where whoever who bid more money wins the fight in the area. Game is literally 15 minutes long. It's a really small game, but it's a little bit lacking because I wish it was a little bit longer of a game. Plague Inc. is the next one, which is basically an area control game, except you are acting as virus and bacteria trying to basically dominate over the world and destroy it essentially. Solid game, but it can get a tiny bit swingy if you have good or bad dice rolls. And the last game I'm going to suggest is Adrenaline. Now this might be a little bit too much for lunch in my opinion, but you never know, it could still work. If you're playing Inish, then you might be able to play Adrenaline in that same time span. El Diablo wants a cheap, high player count game that could be basically played during breaks. Now, there are 3 games I would suggest in this situation. You already thought of one of them, which is One Night Ultimate Werewolf. I would also get the Daybreak expansion along with that. Another game I would definitely suggest getting is Two Rooms and a Boom, and also Spyfall. 2 Rooms and a Boom being maybe a tiny bit longer than 10 minutes. Dragonscar is looking for a game that will be played as not only a solo game, but also all the way up to 5 players. They basically want it to last 1 to 2 hours long, and they love miniatures and deck builders, it seems. The safe bet in this is to suggest Descent 2nd Edition, but I'm going to go on a little stretch here and suggest Terraforming Mars as well, just because it has a lot of card play in it. You're also building up a system and building up an engine, and it apparently has a pretty great solo mode, but it's missing the miniatures. Da Vinci Jr. wants a 2-player game that's not that complicated. Their girlfriend seems to really like board games, but seems to focus on games like Uno and Mancala. Now, I'm going to say this a million times over again. My go-to dating game is always going to be Sherlock Holmes Consulting Detective. But if they also need a game that's a little bit familiar to them, I would also check out Onitama and the Duke, because they're very similar to chess, but shorter and easier. But if you also require a card game, I would suggest Lost Cities as well. And one last little thing, if they really get into games, go with 5 Tribes if they really like Mancala. Mouth Smasher asks a very lengthy question in terms of something very specific, but I'm not going to answer that here. One thing I'm going to address here is that later on in the suggestions, he accidentally bought One Night Ultimate Werewolf Daybreak because it says it's a standalone edition. Even though it is a standalone expansion to the One Night Ultimate Werewolf series, it's not a great standalone game. I would not suggest playing it by itself. So just as a lesson here, don't buy Daybreak unless you already have the base game. Base game's solid, becomes even better with Daybreak. JJ Walker 3 wants a game that works for people that don't deal with logic that well. Now, I have a tiny bit of experience in this as well. One thing I would suggest is I would suggest trying out social deduction games. There's plenty you could choose from: One Night Ultimate Werewolf, Fake Artist, Insider, Resistance, Resistance Avalon, Secret Hitler, the list goes on. But in my experience, what I've learned is that people that don't like logic, even though these social deduction games use deduction in them, what's really great is that you also can play off the players. You don't have to play off of everything that's happened in logical order and logical sense. So because of that alone, that seemed to have worked in my situations a couple times. But I'll say it is a stretch, and it might not work for everyone.